Great to be on Boxing Voice.
Yeah, great to have you, Kev. It's Dave Johal. Pleased to be joined by Kevin Barry, trainer, as you're all aware, to Joseph Parker, just to name but one person. How are you, Kevin? And may I just add as well, pleased to have him live from New Zealand. I know it's early doors there, and it's late in the evening here in the UK. How are you?
Dave, I'm doing really well, mate. It's just started day 5 of our quarantine, and so we've got 9 more days to go before we fly back to Auckland and start training camp.
Wow. Whereabouts are you now at the moment? Because you flew back.
I'm in Christchurch.
Oh, wow. Okay. We know that.
And you don't really, until you actually land, like we were landing in Auckland and they said, oh, by the way, everyone on this plane will be flying to Christchurch. I went, oh my gosh. So that's how it works. But I'd say, look at the hotels are 4.5 star. The food's been pretty good. The people here at the hotel have been tremendous. So we know we're here for 14 days and we're just making the most of it. I'm watching a lot of tape and doing a few interviews, and I've got an exercycle beside me that I jump on every day. Did an hour yesterday.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, a place to start is the fight that's recently been announced: Joseph Parker versus Junior Fa. Now, it's not just a massive fight for New Zealand. I mean, obviously there's a bit of history there between Joseph and Junior fighting in the amateurs. It's what is it, a 2-2 draw at the moment, and this is the settler. But it could shape, as Lou DiBella mentioned, the heavyweight landscape. I mean, talk to us about how this fight happened, because originally weren't you guys going to fight Lucas Brown like in an Australia New Zealand showdown? I mean, that was possibly cited as well, wasn't it?
Well, there was there was talk of us fighting Lucas for a while, and we were looking to make that happen. The Junior Fa fight is a fight that I didn't think it was going to happen this year, but it's a fight that we've always known. Both camps have always known that fight would eventually take place, and right at the moment, the stars are aligning. With the pandemic being on, with the borders being closed in other countries, with Joe not able to get back to the US for his training camps. There were no fights available for him there this year. The Junior Fa hasn't fought this year. His promoter, Lou DiBella, hasn't had much on. So, it was inevitable that we were going to be looking at this fight and looking hard at this fight. There was talk originally of us fighting maybe in October, but, we needed a little bit more time. The negotiations took longer. Junior Fa's team did a very good job with the negotiations. I think they realized that at this particular stage and in the world that we all live in today, there were very few options for either guy. And either sit out and don't fight for the rest of the year, or for Junior's case, don't fight this year, or actually look at the fight that's right in front of you, and which was obviously, Joseph Parker versus Junior Fa. Now, as I mentioned, we've always known that this fight would happen, but Joe's now been a professional for 8 years. During that time, he's fought some of the biggest names in the world. He won the world title in his 4th year as a professional. He was the 4th youngest heavyweight of all time. A inexperienced Junior Fa fought on the undercard that night. So the year that Joe won his world title, 2016, was the year that Junior Fa turned pro. Yes, history. They've fought 4 times in the amateurs. And both guys, had the measure of each other. Both guys think they won all the fights. Actually, what happened was Junior won the first fight, Joe won the second and third, and the 4th fight that had the most significance, which was for a position to go to the Olympic Games, Junior won. So, that's something that's always disappointed Joe, that he never had that opportunity to go to the Olympics. So, there is a lot of history between these two guys. And the fact that neither guy can get a fight outside of New Zealand, and both guys are in such a marketable position with the WBO, with Joe sitting there at 3 and Junior at 6. This is a very, very important fight. The winner of this fight is going to find themselves in a very, very strong position, possibly being one fight away from fighting for the heavyweight title.
It's an absolutely huge fight. I mean, for people that want to compare it to something, potentially it could be compared to, I don't know, like a Dillian Whyte when he clashed with Joshua early doors, that rivalry. They're both rising heavyweights, and it's a good story as well, isn't it? It makes it a nice sell. You know, people that yeah.
It is a good story, and there is definitely the significance of Whyte and Joshua, except one thing. You know, with the Whyte and Joshua, there was a lot of anger, a lot of hostility, a lot of bad blood. There is no bad blood between Junior and Joe. There is no hostility. There is no anger. You know, both guys are very respectful guys. Both guys are very humble men. Both guys are very, very much God-fearing men. So for them now to come out and start talking smack to each other, it just wouldn't work. People know what Joseph Parker is capable of. People have watched Junior Fa move to 19-0, and they're wondering, you know, how good can Junior Fa be? I've told a few people when Joseph Parker was 19-0, we gave him a very big step-up fight. He fought Carlos Takam, who was 33-2, and Carlos Takam was one of the most respected heavyweight fighters in the world. We knew how tough Takam was. We knew what he brought. We knew the experience that he had. And Joseph Parker at 19-0 was in a life and death fight with Carlos Takam. But Joe beat Takam very, very closely on points to become the number 1 ranked fighter in the IBF. Now here we have, and of course Joe went on to fight for the WBO. Now we have Junior Fa 19-0 fighting a 27-2, 21 knockout Joseph Parker, a man who won the world title as the 4th youngest heavyweight of all time. He defended it twice. He's been in some big fights. He's fought in front of 80,000 people in Cardiff, Wales against Anthony Joshua, being the first guy to ever go the distance with Joshua. Now Junior Fa finds himself in a fight where, how good am I? Can I step up now? Very similar to what we did against Takam. Can he step up against Joseph Parker? Mm-hmm. And you know, the winner of this fight is going to be in a very, very good position. You know, this is a life-changing fight for Junior Fa. This will put him, if he can do what he believes he can do. Obviously, he knows he's beaten Joe twice in the amateurs, so he's thinking, God, I've beaten him before. You know, so if he can believe in himself enough and produce his best ever fight, like I think he will, mm-hmm. You know, I expect, you know, I've watched tape in that of Junior, but I'm thinking that we're going to fight a fighter who has, who's prepared to put it all on the line. And this is his opportunity to shine. This is his opportunity to show not only the fans in New Zealand, but this fight has been shown live in the UK, it's been shown live in the US and in a lot of other countries. So this is a major coming out fight for Junior Fa, and a fight for Joseph Parker if he really is serious, like I know he is, about fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world again. Mm-hmm. You know, we have to take care of business on December 11th against Junior Fa.
I mean, one thing that and again, as an outsider looking in, Joseph's last few fights, especially since after the Hughie Fury fight, I think there's a slight sort of difference in he starts a lot faster. I don't know what it is, but like with the Winters knockout as well, it was a case of, I just want to show my power. I don't know, and I think that there is a major difference in that as well. Have you guys been working on anything since the Hughie Fury fight, and is it a case of we don't get paid for overtime now, or is it anything like that? Or
No, I think everyone likes heavyweights to render their opponents unconscious. You know, they want to see big guys delivering thudding blows that knock the other guy out. Joe now realizes that more than ever, that, you know, the more marketable you are, the more sponsors you can get, the higher the TV ratings you have, all come down to your performances in the ring. And it's not about winning rounds, it's about knocking people out. We're coming off 3 good knockout wins. I think we're going to see a more aggressive Joseph Parker who's at his best, and his strength is, we all know he's got great hand speed, but we also know he can throw great combinations. When he lets his hands go, the fights end a lot faster. Mm-hmm. He understands that, and I think he right at the moment, at the age of 28, he's feeling stronger than he's ever felt before. Throughout this pandemic, he's been able to do a lot of strength work, a lot of power work. The FaceTime calls that him and I have from the gym, you know, he's very thick at the moment, very powerful. And I think we're going to see a very strong, explosive Joseph Parker in the fight on the 11th of December.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to that. Another sort of another fighter you've been training and helping out is Guido Villanelli from SGM Boxing. How's he coming along, Kevin?
Look, Guido's been coming along really, really nicely. He's been it's been a rough year for him. He was supposed to fight Devin Vargas in Canada in March, and then the pandemic hit like a week and a half before we were due to leave. Then we were lucky. We got to fight on the first televised event in the US. It was June the 9th. It was a top-ranked show at the MGM. He had a quick 1-minute knockout. And Guido had strung together a whole bunch of early knockouts. Then we lined up again to fight in July, and his opponent had tested positive for COVID after we were already in the hotel. So, you know, here we were having the second fight of the year, and the opponent we had, Kingsley Ibea, was a very determined, very tough, very powerful guy. Gave Guido a very hard fight. It wasn't Guido's best work. He was a little flat on the night. We had a good game plan coming into the fight to keep this big, powerful guy on the outside, not to allow him into the middle distance. And, Guido simply didn't follow the game plan in the early rounds of the fight. And in the second round, we suffered a very bad cut across the top of his eye that actually required 15 stitches after the fight. But after the cut, he had a little bit of trouble controlling the distance. There were moments where he got hit with punches, so he allowed Kingsley into the middle zone, which was his strength. So I believe, and we finished the fight very well the last couple of rounds, and we came away with a draw, which wasn't the ideal result, but it's a fight that, looking back now, it was a fight that he will mature and develop in more than any other fight. It was good for him to realize that not everyone's going to be knocked out in 1 or 2 rounds, and fighting a guy with this sort of determination, it gives Guido a lot to think about. He messages me every second day. He's back in Rome now. He's had treatment on the eye. The cut looks good. Probably going to go to a plastic surgeon and get it totally repaired before he comes back next year. But he said to me the other day, "I promise you, coach, I'll never get hit again like that." And I just said, "Well, I'll hold you to that promise." So he knows it wasn't his best work, and we'll regroup again next year. So he was 7-0, 7 KOs coming into that fight. And now he's 7-0 and 1. The thing that frustrated me the most is that Guido had just been approved to come down to New Zealand to be Joe's main sparring partner in the lead up to his fight. And of course, I knew as soon as the eye was cut in the second round that wasn't going to happen. And it was very hard, a lot of paperwork and a lot of red tape to get someone with a foreign passport into New Zealand. So that didn't happen, and he's back in Rome.
Oh, okay. Well, make sure you give him our best as well. I spoke to him a few months ago, and it's good to keep
But he's definitely one for the future. He's developing nicely. He's done a lot of rounds with Joseph Parker. He's done hundreds of rounds with Joe Joyce. He sparred Tyson Fury in 2 of his training camps. He's a guy. He's 26 years old, 6'6.5". When he totally controls the distance, he's a very, very clever, exciting, marketable fighter. And, I think that, we have some big things moving forward with him. As I mentioned before, that little setback, the draw in a rough 6-round fight, he'll learn and mature more from that than any other fight.
No, good. And before the talks of Lucas Brown and now that Junior Far, Joseph was, it could have been a fight that could have been made between him and Dillian Whyte, and you no doubt saw the performance of Whyte versus Povetkin. Looking at that fight in particular, they're having the rematch. Obviously, you're aware there's a rematch. How do you see the rematch going down, Kevin?
Well, let me just firstly answer the first part that you said then about there was talk about Joe fighting Dillian. Mm-hmm. It takes 2 guys to make a fight.
Sure.
And there was only one party that wanted that fight, and that was us and our team. Dillian Whyte's never ever been interested in fighting Joseph Parker again. He knows without the headbutt to the cerebellum in the early rounds and the way he picked himself up off the canvas in that 12th round, that he was very lucky to come away with a win in that fight. And if we'd had a referee who had actually controlled the fight and not allowed Dillian to foul right throughout the fight, it would have been a totally different story. But look, now talking about Povetkin, I thought Dillian Whyte would have a comfortable win. I thought it was the right opponent at the right time. Sure, a little dangerous. We all saw what Povetkin did in the early rounds against Joshua. In fact, Joshua was one guy that came out, and I remember saying before that fight, "Why would you fight Povetkin? This is a bad style for you. This guy could beat you." You're sitting there in the mandatory position, and of course we all know what happened. But what I saw Dillian do in the 4th round is how I saw the fight playing out. I thought inside 6 rounds he would break him down. He was a bigger, stronger, younger guy. Povetkin, at 40 years of age, his best fights are behind him. Mm-hmm. But of course, as we all know in boxing, it's the punch that you don't see that does the most damage. And he was brutally knocked out. When you talk about the rematch, of course he's going to fight him again, but fighting him in November, just a few months after being brutally knocked out like that, I think is only asking for trouble. One is, there is a reason why they say to fighters and why the medical board suspend you for 90 days after a bad knockout. They suspend you, no going to the gym for 90 days. Then after that, you come back in, you start light work. I would think after a brutal knockout like that, he should not be back in the ring for 6 months. But it's his life, it's his gamble. We know he was in a tremendous position. He was the WBC at one stage said he had till February to fight for the title. We know he sat there for a few years in the number one position, but all that is gone now. He's not going to get. The mandatory is not going to come back in February. The WBC have already said that mandatory is now been pushed out for 12 months. I think it's a dangerous fight, and I think it's a dangerous fight for his physical well-being because I doubt he's had the proper time to recover. But more than that, mentally, he knows that he was put to sleep. He knows he was winning the fight comfortably. And I think that, the biggest thing for him is going to be getting his mental psyche right before stepping back into the ring with Povetkin.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one that, after whatever the outcome of Joseph and Junior, you guys will keep an outcome on, before, because you guys are fighting December the 11th. And just very finally then, from the Boxing Voice, in regards to Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce, what's your prediction on that?
Yes.
A big heavyweight fight, and again, you've been kind of involved with Joe Joyce as well, so with sparring and so on and so forth and training. How do you see that one going down? Because that's going to be a 50-50 possible risky fight for both, isn't it?
Look, I think it's a great fight for the British boxing fans. And, it's been on again, off again all this year. And I feel sorry for the fighters because, they've, obviously both guys want this fight. Both guys think they can win this fight. When you talk about Joseph Parker and Junior Farr having history, in the amateurs, these guys have a lot of history. Joe Joyce says, I've sparred them a couple of hundred rounds. We know Joe Joyce was, he was in the amateurs for forever and turned pro late. Yeah. But his team, Sam Jones and Adam Morley have done a great job with him. They've given him the right fights to capture the attention of the boxing world. They've given him the right fights to allow him to develop. They knew that they had a fighter that they couldn't spend 2 years fighting, nondescript opponents, and they went for name guys more or less right from the get-go, which was, very aggressive.
I mean, but Lewis, wasn't it?
Beg your pardon?
Fight one was Ian Lewison, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. So yeah. So and he's fought some really good guys, in his short career. It's a fight that will test Daniel Dubois more than any other fight. We know Dubois is a young, developing guy. He's getting better all the time. He's got a huge punch. But, you look at Joe Joyce, he's a very, very durable, very methodical guy. He's a big unit with a huge motor. And if you can't knock him out, I think he's the type of guy who's going to be very, very hard to beat, especially if the fight goes some rounds, because we know he just keeps coming and coming and coming. Dubois, I think you've got to respect his power. He's had some really nice knockouts. Hasn't fought at the top level yet, but he's still a young man. And this is a fight it's really a coming out fight for both guys. Even the loser of this fight will still be in a position to come back. It's a fight that, look, as a boxing fan, it's a fight that really excites me. It's a fight that I think that I would love to see it in front of a big crowd, but I don't think it's going to happen. But it's an exciting fight for the British boxing fans and for boxing fans all around the world.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're definitely going to be looking forward to that November 28th, and straight after, Joseph Parker, Junior Farr, December the 11th, guys. Make sure everyone watches. And just a final message for the fans, Kevin.
Well, I can promise all the Joseph Parker fans that we're treating this fight very, very seriously. People know that Joe's the favorite. He's the guy with the reputation. He's the guy with the name. He's been in the big fights. There's a lot at stake for us for pride in this fight, for Joe's legacy. And I think we're going to see a very determined, very powerful Joseph Parker, who's going to look to implode on Junior Fa, his strength and hand speed very early in the fight.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kevin, from the Boxing Voice, and good luck December. And we will be in touch, no doubt. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.
So if you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and share. As always, if you want to support us to the next level, head over to the patreon.com/ThaBoxingVoice. We have tons of exclusive, from Border Wars, from title, betting shows, the list goes on and on and on. But in addition to that, if you guys have questions for fighters, trainers, and promoters, this is where you can submit them. We will run out, get these questions answered, and put it back on the show just for you guys. Appreciate it. Peace.